Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we'll be working on a card with Joseph's Coat technique. I'll be making a card from start to finish, and here are the tools I'll be using. So I've upgraded to an actual anti-static tool. So I have that there, and I'll be using Versamark because I'll be embossing. So I'll be using gold as well as clear and a blending tool. And I'm using Distress Oxides this time, and these are the colors I'll be using. I'll be using Peeled Paint, the new Crackling Campfire, and Fossilized Amber, Vintage Photo, and Spice Marmalade. And I have a stamping block, which I'll be using for the sentiment alone, which is, this is from Joann's. It says hello and fall. I'll be putting those together for my sentiment on this card. And I'll be doing some die cutting. I'm using this circle die for my sentiment, and I'll be using these leaves to stamp on the card. Not all of them, but some of these. And I have my panel and my card base, and I'll be using a scrap piece of black cardstock for my sentiment, and my Misty, my trusty Misty, I love this thing, as well as my heating tool. So let's get started. I'm going to start fast forwarding, and I'll kind of explain what this technique is. So this is new to me. It's not a new technique by any means, but it's new to me. I happen to have a video that came up on my feed, and it says it had mentioned Joseph's Coat. I'll link the video, the original video that I had seen. I'll link it below. And I was intrigued, and I'm like, oh, what is this? And when I watched the video, I was just kind of like, wow, that looks really fun. Like, that's different. That's fun. Why haven't I ever thought of doing something like that? So I wanted to make a card that is fall themed using this technique. So I just blended all the colors here. I'm going back with certain colors to kind of blend it. It's not going to look pretty at all, but by the end of it, you'll see how it turns out. Some of you might have heard of this already, so you kind of know, but this was really fun. This was something different, something I've never done. And so it's very important that your card base is completely dry. No matter what ink you decide to use for the background, you have to make sure it's dry, so that none of the embossing powder sticks to, the card. I'll be using anti-static tool as well, but still you want to make sure it's really nice and dry. So I'm doing the front and the back. So I'll just speed through this, no big deal. Not too exciting, but necessary. Okay. So here it is, all nice and dry. We're good to go. We're going to start stamping. So I'm going to put it in my Misty, and then I'm going to take the stamps of the leaves, all the different leaves, and I'm going to pick a few leaves and kind of arrange them on the card. Not all over. I'm going to kind of keep them in a cluster because I do want to fill up as much of this background as I can with the leaves so that this can stand out at the end, and you'll see what I'm talking about when we get to that point. So I'm just kind of just arranging a nice little group, and we're going to stamp that down. Use my Versamark and my embossing tool, my new anti-static tool. So excited. It's official. I've upgraded. So here I am with the Versamark, stamping the stamps and then put it down. And then I am going to take the leaves and just make another arrangement on the card wherever they fit. Again, I'm trying to just squeeze in as many as I can and fill up as much of this background as I can with these leaves. And once I have my placement, just stamp it down again. And then the third time I only need just a couple more to fill in a couple spots. So I go ahead and do that. Stamp those down, and this part is done. Now we move on to embossing. and we're going to use the clear embossing powder for this, and you'll see why. So we're just going to pour this all over the card. Make sure we cover all those leaves. It's a little hard to tell because, you know, the Versamark is clear, so it's hard to see, but you can kind of see it with the light. When you kind of move it around, you see it shining. You don't want to see any shining because that means you haven't gotten any embossing powder on it. So I'm just doing minor little cleanup. Wasn't even really necessary. I just wanted to make sure it was as perfect as possible. And so here we go, and I'm going to emboss that, and it's all going to stay clear. But then the next step is where the magic happens, and you'll see it just kind of transforms right before your eyes. Very, very cool. So here we go. I'm going to take the vintage photo and my blending tool, and I'm just going to cover the entire thing. So if you can tell, I know the light is a little bright. You'll see better at the end. I have pictures and everything to show. But the vintage photo is just sticking to the background, whatever is not embossed. The leaves are staying with the colors that I put on the background. It's not accepting the ink because it's resisting because we embossed it. So there, I'm done, and I'm going to take a little paper towel and I'm just going to wipe away whatever ink might be sitting on top of the leaves, and they kind of just brighten up and come to life. And this is such a cool and fun technique. Super easy. So I'm making my card base. This comes together very quickly, guys. It's fun and fast. And I'm doing my favorite technique. I'm putting the Versamark all around the edges because I want to emboss in gold. I think it'll be really nice to stand out from my panel, from behind on my panel. And I love doing this, guys. It's just easy, especially if you don't have any foiled cardstock or anything like that. So I'm using the gold all around the edges. And then, of course, I'll use my heating tool and melt all this goodness down, and it'll be a beautiful gold, and it'll stand out when I put my panel down. So here I go. Heat emboss that real quick. Oh, I love this. So fun. Okay, and now I'm going to take my panel and I'm going to glue it down onto the base. You see how it just has that just little halo all around the panel, and it just pops. It gives it a little extra something. And I'm just going to eyeball it as I do usually. Just kind of eyeball it, lay it down. I'm happy with it, and I'm going to work on my sentiment. So I'm going to take, here you'll see I took both hello and fall, and I tried to put them on the block together. But as you know, polymer stamps, photopolymer stamps, they have like an edging around it, so I couldn't get the words close enough like I wanted. So I'm going to stamp one word at a time so that I can control its placement. So I took my black cardstock, I used my anti-static tool, and I stamped fall, and now I'm going back with hello and lining it up just how I would like. And then we're going to emboss this in gold. There it is, perfect. And once I heat this up, I'm going to, off camera, I'll be using the round dies that I showed you in the beginning, and I'll be cutting this out a round shape. And you'll see here, that's a perfect little fit there. I cut it. Here we go. Perfect. Now I take my card base, and I thought it'd be really nice down in the corner. So this way I don't cover too much of the background. I really just love this technique and the way it came out. So I wanted it to be the main part of the card. I didn't want the sentiment to really take away from the background, but I still wanted a little something. And I think this is perfect. And I love the way it came out. And I have a couple pictures to show you. And I hope you guys liked it. It's really easy. I hope you try it. And please subscribe if you haven't. And if you have, as you know, I'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much. Bye.